I know. We'll figure it out.
I'd like to call to order this Ravenna School District Board of Education meeting for January 22nd, 2024, business meeting 5:30 p.m. Ravenna High School. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda items.
I'll call roll. Mr. Wisniewski?
Here?
Mrs. Dennison?
Here.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Here.
Mrs. Seaman?
Here.
Mr. Tantamonio?
Yes.
Will initiate the oath of office. I, Mike Wisniewski,
Do
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties
as a member of the Board of Education of the Ravenna School District,
as a member of the Board of Education for the Ravenna School District,
Portage County, Ravenna, Ohio,
Portage County, Ravenna, Ohio,
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
in accordance with the laws now in effect
and hereafter to be enacted
and hereafter to be enacted
during my continuance in said office
during my continuance in said office
and until my successor is elected and qualified.
until my successor is elected and qualified.
Congratulations.
If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to introduce our student board members of the month from Ravenna High School, Michael Myers, and from Brown Middle School, Noah Brode. Thank you for being here with us tonight. If we can have a moment of silence, please. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No.
Approval of the agenda as amended.
Need a motion.
Can I have a motion, please? Thank you.
So moved.
Second. So Joan, and then Pat.
Call roll.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonio? Yes. Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
We have no one for recognition.
No. Okay. Who's taking the presentation?
So at this time, we have Mayor Seaman here, who is here to present a very special proclamation.
Good evening. I want to thank you for the privilege of coming tonight to recognize the efforts of the Ravenna Board of Education. We have a proclamation from the city that I would like to read. It's from the Office of the Mayor, Proclamation School Board Recognition Month. Whereas our community values a quality education as a vital step along the pathway to success for our children, and whereas Michael Wisniewski, Patricia Dennison, Joanne Seaman, Michael Tantamonio, and Pamela Calhoun contribute greatly to this community through their service on the Ravenna Board of Education. And whereas these local decision makers set the policies and procedures to govern all aspects of the school district operation, and whereas the school board keeps attention focused on progress towards the school district's goals and maintains a two-way communication loop with all segments of the community. Whereas these school board members are serving our community with integrity, honor, and a commitment to the children of children's future. And now, therefore, I, Frank Seaman, the mayor of the city of Ravenna, do hereby declare my appreciation to the members of the Ravenna School Board of Education. Proclaim the month of January 2024 as School Board Recognition Month in the city of Ravenna. I urge all citizens to join me in recognizing the dedication and hard work of local school board members in working with them to mold an education system that meets the needs of both today and tomorrow's children. In official recognition thereof, I affix the seal and signature on the 22nd day of January 2024. Signed, Mayor Frank Seaman. Thank you. A lot of people don't know what all you do, and that is a shame. Your contributions are huge to the city of Ravenna and important to the city and township of Ravenna. I am hopeful. I expect to be working on an endorsement for the upcoming school levy. I talked with Mr. Wisniewski when he came in. He and I are going to meet and work out a date so that we can get that done. But that also is an important ingredient to keeping the schools where they need to be. We need to support this levy. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have that proclamation and have it up at the board office so that everybody can see it when they come in. The second part of School Board Appreciation Month is we do want to recognize our school board at the building and district level. On your tables, you will find Mrs. Cross's fourth grade STEM class made everybody a keychain. They designed it. Mrs. Cross is here. She can tell you probably way more than I can. But they designed it using a CAD program. The kids determined how big it would be, how to make it 3D, and it says launching our next generation, which we thought would be appropriate having a STEM class actually do that for our next generation. You also have a series of letters, grades K through 12, from all the students or many of the students in the school district thanking you for your work as a school board member. Some of them are specific to you, so if I gave you the wrong one, just mix it up and move it around. But some of you, I know Genevieve gave her dad one and Mrs. Calhoun has her own, so some of you have your own. So just mix it around. So we wanted to just say thank you. I think Mr. Sharaba might have something for you later, but I'll let him go through that. So congratulations to our school board members, and thank you so much for all the hard work that you do day after day. We also have a series of presentations, grant presentations tonight. So if we could start with the Master Gardeners, and if the Master Gardener grant presentation, if you wanted to come to the podium and make your presentation. Are they here? Okay, well, we had Mrs. Stefancic and Mrs. O'Donnell, both science teachers with the district, received the Master Gardener grant. We also have Portage County Retired Teachers Association is also here to provide a grant. I think you're here, right? If you would go to the podium. And I think our teacher is here as well.
Well, thank you for letting me come this evening and speak to you people. My name is Jim Monaquilla, and I am with the Portage County Retired Teachers Association. For the board members especially, do you ever think, what does a retired teacher do? You know, we have over 300 people that were working in Portage County as teachers or administrators that are now part of our Portage County Retired Teachers Association. Back in 1994, our group decided that maybe what we ought to do is continue to work with the kids in Portage County. At that time, we began giving out scholarships. And we have given out scholarships since that time. We began with $100 scholarships. Now we're up to $2,500 scholarships. And one of your students last year was able to get one of our scholarships. Hannah Schrin got one of our scholarships. But 5 years ago, one of our members of our executive board said, what are we doing just giving out scholarships? We're not really aiding the people in the classrooms, in the buildings in Portage County. And we began a program of giving out teacher grants. Now, our teacher grants are to be for something that teachers come up with these great ideas, but many times they die because they don't have the funding available for them. So we began this 5 years ago, and as of now, your school district will have given out we'll be giving out 4 of our grants to people in your school district. Gretchen Savinsky got one in 2019. Matt Wonderly the next year. Cindy Schrin and Matt Wonderly again this year. Now, Matt Wonderly is a social studies teacher with you, an American history teacher. I'm an old history teacher, and I always heard, all they do is make you learn dates and names and the presidents. Wait a minute, not Matt Wonderly. Matt Wonderly has brought history to life. I'm going to be giving out a $500 grant for Matt for his program on reacting to the past. Reacting to the past consists of elaborate games set in the past in which students are assigned roles informed by classic texts in the history of ideas. The program seeks to draw students into the past, promote engagement with big ideas, and improve intellectual and academic skills. Students will be having discussions with other students as historical figures. They will be living through history with units of science and technology and society, conflict and unity in U.S. society, and the age of revolution. With this money, $500 grant, they will be purchasing a set of books entitled Raising the 11th Pillar. This is the second time that we're able to give out a grant to Matt Wonderly, and we're so proud of him. I'd like to give out a plaque for his classroom if you wish to have that, as well as the $500. So Matt, would you come forward if you're here?
Matt's right behind.
And we're going to be in contact with you for coming to a luncheon, okay?
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. And finally, for your treasure, $500.
Thank you. We appreciate you so much coming out tonight and recognizing the fine work of Mr. Wonderly. He does a great job in the classroom, and you should see him with his powdered wig on. I've seen it. It happens, right? Congratulations, Mr. Wonderly. We also have several Game Changer awards tonight, so what we need now is we need the adult Game Changers and the student Game Changers to head on over to the stairway over there. Your principals will meet you. The adults will go first. If the board would go up on the stage, they'll be coming across. So this is for the adults, and then those are for the kids. Mm-hmm. And the student board member also goes with the board, so Noah, you're going to be up there with them as well. So everybody knows this is my favorite part of the board meeting, is when we get to recognize our teachers and our kids. All right, so guys ready? First, we have Mrs. Sarah Catalucci from Brown Middle School. She's a 6th grade social studies teacher. Mrs. Catalucci, yep, go ahead, big clap, go ahead. Mrs. Catalucci has worked hard to help students excel at Brown Middle School. Last year was her first year as the department chair, and she took the position and ran with it. She uses ELA assessment data to determine ways that the social studies department can work collaboratively with English to raise achievement. They have found social studies content that aligns with the English and has worked to get students where they need to be. She also took the lead on having the department participate in 2 contests, One was the Americanism essay contest through the Elks, and the other was the Great History Challenge. Brown Middle School was selected for all of the divisions for the American essay, and no other schools being selected. 38 students were invited to move on to the next level for the Great History Challenge. That's pretty impressive. Sarah also volunteered to teach an entirely new elective this year to help with the shortage of teachers. She took on creative writing for 5th and 6th graders and is taking it to another level. In this class, students learn cursive writing. See, it is still taught. Cursive writing, are exposed to poetry, letter writing, and have a small introduction to sign language. Finally, Sarah is in charge of the all-school reads. She creates lesson plans for all of the teachers in the school to follow and organizes the entire event. Teachers have commented on how well-run the days are, and the students are always engaged in the book selected and activities that are created to go along with it. Mrs. Catalucci is a true example of what it takes to be a game changer. Thank you, Mrs. Catalucci. Next, we have Jane Davis from our food services department. She looks really different without her food service costume on and hairnet and all that stuff. Mrs. Davis is the assistant manager at Brown Middle School. And for those of you who don't know, all the food in the district is organized, collected, prepared at the middle school, and then sent out to all the other buildings. So the job of the middle school cafeteria workers is pretty extensive. But on top of that, we have to take care of each other while we're in the kitchen. And we had a serious kitchen accident a little while ago with an employee. Jane used her background in the medical field to assess the injury while calming the staff member. By the time the squad arrived, the injury was wrapped on ice, and the employee was in good spirits. Good spirits, okay. She was a true game changer that day and is so every day. She is a calm voice in the midst of chaos, and we really appreciate Jane Davis, Food Services Assistant Manager at Brown Middle School. Congratulations, Mrs. Davis. Okay, we're going to start with our preschool. Look at this cuteness. First, we have Olive Belknap. Her teacher, Mrs. Fessler, nominated Olive. Olive deserves the Student Game Changer Award because she always comes to school with the biggest smile on her face and is always ready to learn and play and help her friends. She is a great leader and is always first to help a friend or a teacher. She's always very eager to learn and answer questions in the classroom. She is a ray of sunshine, and it is such an honor to have her in my class. She has grown so much, and I am so proud of all the hard work that Olive has done and the positive attitude she always has. Congratulations, Olive. Look at those little bitty Uggs. Our kindergarten representative from West Park this month is Lily Wisniewski. Lily comes to school each and every day, ready to learn and to help others. She is a wonderful friend and classmate to everyone. Lily cheers others up when they're having a hard time. She works hard every day and is a great role model to others in class. Lily is a leader in so many ways. She is always respectful, responsible, and in control. West Park is really proud of Lily. Keep up the good work and congratulations. I think we have a proud daddy. From Williard, we have Willow Prater. Willow is in second grade and was nominated by her teachers, Mrs. Miller and Ms. Link. Willow is an exceptional student who has consistently overcome challenges throughout this school year. She's grown academically and socially in so many ways. She's improved her language skills and communication skills and has actually graduated from her communication device. We've watched her move from Miss Casey's classroom with lots of support to participating in Miss McGee's and Miss Beatty's general ed second grade classroom with increasing independence. It brings her teachers so much pride and joy to watch her achieve her highest potential. Congratulations, Willow. From West Main, we have Luna Mott. Luna, I believe, is a fourth grader, right? Luna, a fourth grader, was nominated by her teachers, Miss Cross, Miss Shell, and Miss Brackenrich. Luna is a hard worker and always tries her very best in every subject. She's always willing to help others in our classroom, and it always makes everyone feel welcome. Her enthusiasm is contagious. Luna is definitely a game changer at West Main Elementary. Congratulations, Luna. Now, from Brown Middle School, we have fifth grader Alyssa Bulkey. Alyssa is a fifth grader at Brown Middle School, and her love for history and learning comes through in class. She loves history especially. She works hard, participates, and is a leader in the classroom. Whenever you see Alyssa in the hallway, she has a smile on her face and goes out of her way to say hello. Alyssa is a true example of what it means to be respectful, responsible, and in control, and we are proud to recognize her as the January Brown Middle School Student Game Changer. Congratulations, Alyssa. I think there's a history theme tonight. I like it as a social studies teacher. All right, finally, from Ravenna High School, we have Giselle Maddox, or Jazzy Jazz. Giselle constantly demonstrates the Raven expectations of being respectful, responsible, and in control on the daily. She is extremely helpful with a huge heart for others. She's not only helpful and caring with her peers, but also with the staff. She's a diligent and hardworking student. Giselle always advocates for her needs as well as the needs for others. Giselle is a thoughtful, caring, and motivated to be the best version of herself possible while leaving a positive impression anywhere she goes. Congratulations, Giselle. She even helped hand out all the letters to the board tonight. I didn't even have to ask her twice. So at this time, we're going to take a short recess. We're going to go out to the cafeteria and we're going to take pictures. Parents, you'll have time to take pictures of your kids. We'll take board member pictures and student board pictures. All right, thank you. Yep.
All right, next is the treasurer's update.
Yes, thank you. Tonight, I want to include some information about our tax budget. But first, I want to hit some of the highlights. Some of the highlights in the finance department for January. First off, I wanted to mention that I did participate in the State of the Schools listening tour with Dr. Hebert this month and was able to provide the community with some financial information. Next up, the calendar year-end tasks are nearly completed. Those are our 1099s, our W-2s, our 1095s, things that our hardworking finance department staff take care of each year. So I wanted to shout out to them. We do have a vacancy in our department right now for the payroll clerk position, but we are conducting interviews. That's an ongoing process, and we have second round interviews scheduled for tomorrow morning. Our fiscal year 2023 financial audit is still ongoing as well, and we continue to work with our state auditors to get that completed. Our special education excess cost applications were submitted by the state deadline on Friday. We submitted about 28 applications this year for about $130,000 in reimbursements. The Ohio Department of Education and Workforce continues to partner with the district on our deficit reduction plan that the board will be reviewing at next month's meeting. And then finally, we need to schedule a board finance committee meeting once we get our committees finalized and we take a look at our schedules. I'd like to get back on track with those each month. Next up, I want to hit some of the highlights of what is on the agenda for this evening and the treasurer recommendations. One of our items is the elementary HVAC equipment lease loan with Portage Community Bank, and that'll be repaid from our permanent improvement funds. So again, I wanted to provide a little bit of information about that the lease amount is $780,000, and then provide you with the payment schedule for that. 11 payments. We actually begin with our first payment this March, immediately after our property tax collection settlement in March. So that helped keep our interest rates low. And so you see a breakdown of the principal and interest in total payments for each year of that loan that'll be repaid in 2029. Because that's being paid from our permanent improvement funds, I wanted to give you a little bit of additional information about our permanent improvement funds. These are the tax revenues that are collected for books, buses, and buildings. They are not used for general operating expenses, and they're not used to pay for salaries and benefits of the district. They're specifically earmarked for these permanent improvement projects. There are two permanent improvement levies currently with the district. We have a continuing levy that was approved in 2006 that was voted as 1.5 mils, and it collects about $483,000 this fiscal year. We also have a 5-year renewable levy for permanent improvements. It was originally approved by our community in 2017 and again renewed in 2021. That's a voted 2.9 mils, and it collects about $939,000 this year. The other thing in our permanent improvement funds is our RHS remediation settlement funds. As you recall, we received those last year, and we've decided to account for them in our permanent improvement funds because that's where we pay for that loan from. I also gave you some examples of expenditures coming out of the permanent improvement funds, and we pay for summer projects, those projects around the district that help upgrade our buildings, our district-wide technology projects, and we have used them in the past to purchase buses. We received a grant last year for, with some COVID money from the state to purchase 3 buses, but we needed to match that with some local funds. So that was the $133,000 from our PI money. In the past, we've used this money for tax anticipation notes. That was a loan to make some boiler upgrades. and then another loan for upgrades to our athletic conference, and that was back in 2012 and 2013. Both of those loans have been paid off. We've also used these funds for a bus lease loan and a Chromebook lease loan. Again, short-term, 5-year loans on equipment, and as the district receives these PI funds, we make the payments. The RHS remediation loan from Portage Community Bank is also in this fund. That's why we put the settlement funds in there as well. We transfer $500,000 of these funds into our building maintenance fund. That was determined at the time of the 2006 levy. And then upcoming tonight, the elementary HVAC equipment lease loan will also be paid for out of these permanent improvement funds. The other fund that I wanted to call out tonight is the bond fund. And that's a little bit like your mortgage fund. So that's our debt service fund for the RHS construction. We have a couple of series of those. And I thought it might be important to give you those schedules so you could see how much more we have to pay on those. We have a 2016 series with Portage Community Bank. We still have about a $1.2 million outstanding principal, and that'll be paid through 2023. And then we did a refinancing in 2020, and part of the debt is now with Huntington National Bank. The total principal, again, was $9.5 million, and the 2012 series that was partially refinanced in 2020 still has an outstanding balance of $940,000 with Huntington National Bank. So these loans are periodically reviewed to determine if a refinancing would make sense and would save us money. And in 2020, when interest rates were really low, it looks like we did a refinancing. So that's why you have different series of these loans. So that was probably a smart move, and I'm sure it saved our taxpayers quite a bit of money. It was a little bit before I was here. The rest of the presentation, though, I want to talk about the fiscal year 25 alternative tax budget that's also on the agenda tonight for recommendation. The next slide gives you some information about the alternative tax budget goals. At one time, every political subdivision in the state was required to do a tax budget, but the laws have changed since then, and so that gives you a little bit of that history. But what it comes down to is the county still needs the information and now collects it on a form called the alternative tax budget. The district is responsible to get this to the Portage County Auditor before February 1st each year. And that's a little bit later than traditionally we did the tax budget by January 20th. So the next slide shows you a timeline kind of our fiscal year and our highlights of responsibilities throughout that fiscal year. So our fiscal year begins July 1. In September, we do a permanent appropriation adoption. In October, November, we do a 5-year forecast. And that brings us up to January now. We're doing the tax budget for next year already. We had a hearing prior to this meeting, and the board will be asked to approve the tax budget on the agenda this evening. It'll be sent to our county auditor's office where next month they will send us back the certified tax rates. And you'll see that on the agenda in February. In March and April, then we use that information to begin our budgeting process for next year and make our staffing decisions. In May, we will do a 5-year forecast update. And in June, we do our final appropriation for this year, and we set a temporary appropriation for next year. So you've seen that timeline before. Every year we cycle back through. The next slide shows you a little bit of information about this tax budget. Each of the board members received prior to this meeting and has in front of them tonight a printed copy of the alternative tax budget workbook. It has these instructions in this background, and then each of these charts that follow. So kind of gives you an idea of the 4 schedules included in this tax budget. The tax budget is based on our collected millage. So again, I include that levy history slide. I think that is so important to see what millage was approved, what millage is being collected, when it was last approved by our community. And then again, the breakdown that we have operating current expense levies, we have a bond retirement levy for a specific purpose, and then we have those permanent improvement levies, again, specific to books, buses, and buildings. And at the bottom of the slide, I put the total assessed valuation that I received from the county auditor's office is $391,501,660. So that's what we've used for planning purposes going forward. Schedule 1 includes several of our funds that receive property tax revenues. The first one is our general fund. This is essentially your 5-year forecast, but put into a format that the county requires. So the state has us do a 5-year forecast every year, and the 5-year forecast is the state's format. This is the county's format. Essentially the same numbers. The previous fiscal year, it breaks down our revenues by property tax, school foundation, and other receipts. Total revenues, total expenditures tie back to the 5-year forecast. And our revenue over expenses last year being that $184,000, our ending cash balance of $1.2 million. The difference here is we also call out those encumbrances and show an ending unencumbered balance of $787,281. This year, again, our forecast and our budget predicts revenues of $28.8 million, and that is broken down by those property taxes, school foundation, and other receipts again. Our expenses and our budget for this year, and it's about balance. So you see that negative $43,000. And as I told somebody, a couple of vacant positions this year, and that might be able to balance that. But it's a very tight budget this year. Our ending cash balance, though, should be about $1.188 million, and we're just forecasting $100,000 in open orders at the end of the year. The next 3 columns of the chart show the next fiscal year, fiscal 25, but broken down in halves because our county uses a budget year rather than a tax year. So they have us break it down July 1 through December 31st, and then January 1st through June 30th. So that's why the numbers look a little bit different, but again, it ties back to our forecast and the ending cash balance of $133,665 at the end of next year. That's our tight budget. That's our low cash balance for next year. And then finally, the last column on this slide shows July 1, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. And that's our fiscal year 26. And that's the year we know that we have a deficit in our forecast. But we also know that we are making deficit reduction efforts. And so those are accounted for in this general fund slide. It does not account for any additional levy revenues, though. So conservative revenues, conservative expenditures, but also taking into the account that we would do some deficit reduction planning and balance this budget. The next slide is also a Schedule 1, but it's for our bond fund. The only thing in our bond fund right now is our payment on our high school debt. But if you look at the previous fiscal year, you'll see that it's the property tax revenues were $2.5 million as opposed to the $1 million this year, and then the $1 million for next year. And that's because we took out that current tax revenue anticipation note last January. So that revenue went into Fund 2 because that was considered debt, and then it was also paid for out of Fund 2, our bond fund. And so that's why revenues, again, were $1.5 million higher last year in this fund. So that's kind of the specifics of that fund, but that's what you need to know about Fund 2, our debt fund. The next slide shows, again, a Schedule 1, but for our permanent improvement funds. And these, the previous year shows property tax receipts consistent with this year, but the other receipts, again, seem to be $1 million higher than this year. That's because that was the year we transferred those remediation settlement funds in there. So the remediation settlement payments are coming out of the expenses, so now the remediation revenue is in there as well. So again, this fund has a pretty sizable cash balance. It had at one time 4 loans coming out of it. Right now it has the remediation loan coming out of it, and after tonight it'll also have the elementary HVAC loan coming out of it. And that loan is included in those expenses going forward, beginning with the current fiscal year. The next slide shows our facilities management fund. And that slide is in here because we do that transfer from PI into that maintenance fund. So it is considered a fund that receives property tax revenues. So that's what you see in there's the property tax revenues. We also get school foundation funding for that. So you see those receipts in there going forward. And again, that is set aside for maintenance on our buildings. The next slide shows Schedule 2. And that's all of our other funds. So the county requests this information in order to set up our certificate of estimated resources. These are our special revenue funds, our grant funds. The first slide shows you our local special funds, I guess. So for example, our food service fund is on there. Our special trust and endowment, those are our scholarship funds. Our public school support and other grants, those are our building fundraisers and building grants to our teachers. And our stadium improvement fund, that's where our sponsors who make donations that advertise at our stadium, those revenues go in that fund. Our student activity funds, those are our student fundraisers, and our athletic funds, that's the fund where we make a $100,000 transfer each year, but they also receive proceeds from their activities. The next slide then shows you your state and federal grant funds. So starting with your public preschool grant, and then some technology grants. And then our 507 is our ESSER, that's our COVID money, and as a result of our COVID pandemic. Those funds will be wrapping up here this year. So you see about the $1 million that we've carried over into this year, but that should be wrapping up. And then any unspent balance in that last column will be liquidated in the first couple months of next fiscal year. IDEA Part B is our special education grant funds. Our title funds, following that in 572. These are entitlement grants that we receive every year based on our economically disadvantaged students, and then a lot of the money comes in and goes out in the same year. So you see a small balance coming into the year, you see the receipts in the year, they're on a reimbursement basis, so there might be a slight lag, but we spend the money in that fiscal year and then carry forward a very small amount. And then finally, the unvoted debt chart, Schedule 3. That shows you those 2 outstanding loans that are not bond funded, so the remediation loan and the HVAC lease purchase agreement for the required fiscal years. And then the Schedule 4 is blank, so we do not have any current tax anticipation notes. The key takeaways in your tax budget are that we held a hearing this evening prior to this meeting. We are recommending this tax budget for board approval. It'll be submitted to the Portage County Budget Commission prior to February 1st, and then it'll be available on our district website as of tomorrow. So that's the information I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent update?
Yes, I have three things. Remember, we wanted to respond to public comments from the regular meeting before. One was a public comment asking that substitute bus drivers be paid at the same rate of pay as a step one contracted bus driver. And sub-pay is reviewed yearly. It's based on need, finances, and contract rates, and we will revisit that as we do every year at the beginning of next year. The other question was about being disappointed about applying and perhaps not being contacted to drive a bus. All applications are reviewed. We ask for references, and once the references are contacted and are positive, then the applicants move forward in the hiring process, and that's the same for everybody across the board. And then the third thing is I just wanted to say that we completed our fourth State of the Schools listening tour last Wednesday here in the auditorium. It was our most well attended. We had over 20 community members, more than 100 watch, or more than 20 watch online, and we are now up to 130 have viewed the State of the Schools on the YouTube channel. So I feel it was a good night. We had a lot of people, a lot of really good questions. As part of my superintendent update is the building spotlight and the department spotlight. So we're going to start with Mr. Saraba is going to give you a brief overview of what's happening at West Park Elementary, the kindergarten classroom. No, it was a long time ago when you were in kindergarten, but I bet you can still remember, right? So we're going to do the first, Mr. Saraba at West Park.
Well, as Dr. Hebert had mentioned earlier, I have a little something for the board members. Since it's board appreciation month, so that's a little something for me, and each one actually has their own.
Wisniewski's looking for chips.
You know me too well. Okay, that's for you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
It's your team.
Actually, I'll give you.
Frank, you're digging into your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Okay, I am ready. All right. Well, good evening, President Wisniewski, members of the board, and Dr. Hebert. And I appreciate you having me here tonight. I'm going to briefly share with you the student acknowledgement system that we use to encourage and reward positive student behavior at West Park. And this is a big part of our whole PBIS program, and there are basically 8 strategies that we implement at our school to motivate our students to follow the Raven way, which is to be respectful, responsible, and in control. So the first student recognition that I'm going to discuss is our PALM system. And this is our most recognized and celebrated student acknowledgement initiative. And this is done universally by all teachers and is based on students earning PALMs for demonstrating our school's building-wide expectations of being respectful, responsible, and in control. And this is how it works. If students demonstrate being respectful, then they could earn a blue palm in their class buckets. If they demonstrate being responsible, then students can earn a white palm in their buckets. And finally, if students demonstrate being in control, then they could earn a red palm in their class buckets. And all staff are able to distribute palms throughout the building at any time. And palms are typically earned by the classroom as a whole, but sometimes teachers could award a palm for a group of students following the Raven Way. But once again, any palms earned can go directly into the classroom buckets, and the palms are essentially awarded for the whole class. And palms could also be earned during lunch and breakfast time when lots of students are present, and we also have a palm bucket in the cafeteria. And to explain this a little further, each teacher has their own classroom palm bucket to fill up. And each teacher decides, and sometimes with their whole class, what incentive to work towards. So once the classroom palm bucket is filled, then the classroom could have their reward. And once again, this could vary from teacher to teacher, and some common classroom incentives include extra recess time, pajama day, or bring a stuffed animal to school day. And the students really look forward to it, and it gives them something to work towards. And however, to make the palm bucket system more building-wide, once each classroom fills up their palm bucket, then they could dump those palms into our school-wide bucket, which is displayed in the main hallway for everyone to see. And once the school-wide bucket is filled up, then we could have a building-wide celebration. And all students are able to participate in the celebration. And the rewards that we have done in the past can include something like a popsicle party, ice cream party, crazy hat day, dance party, etc. And we have been doing this for the past few years, and the students really enjoy earning the palms in order to obtain the incentive. Now, in addition to the palm system, many teachers implement Class Dojo to reward students with points individually throughout the day. Now, Class Dojo is a technology-based program, and students can earn points by demonstrating the Raven Way of being respectful, responsible, and in control at any given point of the day by their teachers. And points are never taken away from students once they are earned. And teachers are able to share how many points students have earned throughout the day. Now, obviously, the more points they earn, the better. And teachers could reward students in any way they wish once they have reached a certain number of points. And some popular rewards include lunch with the teacher, earning a special prize, or extra computer time. Now, if teachers decide not to use Class Dojo with their students, then they could reward individual students with tickets. This is an alternative option for teachers to use to promote and encourage positive student behavior. Some teachers just felt the need to reward their students with something a little bit more tangible, something they could put right in their hands. And this method just works a little bit better for certain teachers and their students. But once again, students can earn tickets for demonstrating the Raven Way, and tickets are not taken away. And finally, teachers can choose how they want to reward students once they have earned a certain amount of tickets. And in your bags, as some of you have seen, another student acknowledgement strategy that we implement at West Park is our All That in Our Bag of Chips award. It's an oldie, but a goodie. The kids and staff love this award, and we have been using this reward for the past several years. Students can earn a bag of chips from me if I catch them being respectful, responsible, and in control. And is essentially used as sort of a caught being good type of reward. And oftentimes it is done randomly. However, I tend to incorporate it during non-instructional times, such as during lunchtime, moving throughout the halls, and during assemblies. And I also try to reward the bag of chips to students who are caught doing random acts of kindness, and that always impresses me. And as we have done for the past several years, we continue to execute our Student of the Month award. Once a month, each teacher selects one student in their classroom who has done a really good job of demonstrating the Raven Way. And each teacher writes a paragraph explaining why that child was chosen. Then the student's paragraph is read out loud during lunchtime in front of their peers. And finally, the Students of the Month have their pictures taken, and they are posted on our Student of the Month board along with their paragraphs. And this is displayed in our gym for the entire month for everyone to see. Not only do we want our students to demonstrate the Raven Way at school, but we also want to make sure they are demonstrating it on the bus as well. And of course, while students are on the bus, they are still on school property. And we want to make sure there's a way we can motivate and encourage our students to make good choices on the bus and follow all bus rules. Therefore, district-wide, at least grades K through 4, our students participate in the Ride with Pride program, which is coordinated through the Department of Transportation. And students could earn a ride with Pride ticket on the bus given by the bus drivers for being respectful, responsible, and in control. And this acknowledgement strategy also supports the bus drivers. It gives them an opportunity to help build a positive rapport with the students as well. And once students earn a ride with Pride ticket, they could show it to their teachers, and then the teachers could put a palm in their classroom buckets. So, and finally, students could take the ride with Pride tickets home and show it to their families. And this acknowledgement system has really been helping this year. The bus drivers have done a really nice job of following through with this initiative, and the students are really excited to earn those tickets. And thankfully, so far this year, our bus referrals are down quite considerably, and we want to continue that trend for the remainder of the school year. And of course, we also participate in the district-wide Game Changer Award, which we just did today. We consider this student acknowledgement initiative our most prestigious award. Each month, a student is selected from our Student of the Month group who has really just stood out following the Raven way. And of course, the student is recognized at the monthly board meeting. He or she receives a certificate for their efforts, and the child's family is invited to the board meeting to be a part of this wonderful occasion. And once again, the child is recognized district-wide, and it's just a great honor for that child. And finally, the last acknowledgement strategy that we implement at West Park is our Golden Plunger Award. We started this last school year. We felt the need to promote respectfulness, responsibility, and in-control behavior in the bathroom, along with overall cleanliness. Therefore, we came up with the Golden Plunger Award. And this Student Acknowledgement Award may seem kind of silly, but it's actually been very helpful, motivating, and fun. So basically, each week there's a contest between the boys and the girls. Whoever has the cleanest bathrooms and the least behavior problems reported between the two restrooms wins the Golden Plunger Award. And this is awarded weekly and announced every morning, Monday morning, during breakfast time. And the evening custodian actually uses a rating scale to determine the cleanliness of the bathrooms. And he does this daily. And once he rates the bathrooms, he puts the scoring sheets in my mailbox for me to look at the following morning. Then at the end of the week, whichever gender has the highest rating is awarded the Golden Plunger Award. And the Golden Plunger is displayed by the bathrooms with the winning gender labeled. And the kids really look forward to it each week, and we have found it to be helpful with overall cleanliness in the restrooms. And so far at this point in the school year, bathroom referrals are down as well. And so this concludes my presentation for the evening. I hope you've been well informed of the student acknowledgement system that we implement at West Park. And once again, it is a big part of our whole PBIS program. And I really want to say I think our staff has done a really good job of following through with these initiatives. And these initiatives that we put in place have really been very helpful and motivating to our students this year. And I think we've seen a lot of great growth with them over the past 5 months. So thank you.
Thank you. I think the Golden Plunger Award is pretty inventive. All right, next. Next, we also have a department spotlight. Mr. Lee Smith, our curriculum director, wants to talk to you a little bit about the reading plan that we're asking you to approve later on the agenda.
Okay, so the reading improvement plan actually started as our local literacy plan last year. We were ahead of and our goal was to participate in best practices by actually studying our data, identifying issues that we have, and discrepancies that we have within the district, and then set on a plan of action. So this year, under House Bill 33, the reading improvement plan became mandatory, and that's where we're at now. And just like I had mentioned a second ago, it's really focused on data and setting goals and developing a plan to move forward. And again, like I had mentioned, ODEW, so this year we have to have a plan that is written out and approved by the local Board of Education. And it has to use best practices that ODEW is currently rolling out. So one of the things that, this probably not a great color choice there, but one of the things that we found, and this is just a snippet of multiple grade levels, and you have the full, I believe it's about a 33-page document in the link there. But one of the things that we found is, especially post-COVID, that when we start looking at our subgroups that are like our economically disadvantaged students with disabilities, our Black African American students, what we really found is that there was a very large discrepancy of how our overall population was performing versus the various subgroups. That was not anything that was acceptable to us. And one of the pieces of data that's typically not a public piece of data is the kindergarten readiness scores. And we really started to look at that. And one of the things that we found when we saw the score, we have to dig into root causes. Well, Mrs. Coleman and myself, we started talking about why do you think this is? And what we found is that our demographics of our preschool did not match the demographics of our school-age children. So for example, in this particular case, what we found, Mrs. Coleman and I found out, was that our black students were underrepresented in our preschool. And for me personally, the ability to take part of the DEI task force and start connecting the dots of some of these things and ideas and concerns that we were bringing up. And I remember specifically in one of our meetings that we talked about access to education. Well, when you start to see a number to access, it starts to really make sense. So one of the things that we did is Mrs. Coleman and I went out to our community centers. In one of our conversations was with Maya Sanders, and we said, "Hey, this is an issue that we're looking at. What do you think? Give me a different perspective, a non-school perspective." And in that particular case, Maya helped us, and she said, "Hey, people in our community feel that preschool maybe not, they don't have access to preschool. Maybe they can't afford it. And we looked at, or I won't say we, Mrs. Coleman designed a flyer to really encourage kids to come into preschool. And that we do actually have a sliding scale that's different than most preschools. So essentially, we began to remove that barrier of access to early education. Another thing that we found in our third grade test scores, this is one of the things that gives me a lot of hope for what's to come. So in our overall test scores, we know that the Department of Education, ODEW, as soon as COVID came out, they said two groups that were hit the hardest by COVID: economically disadvantaged and minority students. And we found that to be true in our own data. And also we found that the recovery rate was not near as fast as what we wanted it to be. Now, what I will draw your attention to on the summary of that is when you go to the 2022-2023 school year, you'll notice that the recovery rate, especially in our students of color, that it jumped nearly 15%. Now, my theory behind that is this, that now that we have, and the district purchased, a consistent, rigorous curriculum, that those scores are starting to level out, and that gap is going to start closing. Now, we're going to have some more data to look at that, but that's what I'm thinking is going on right now. I want to back up too. Just so you know, we also saw that not only in our third grade scores, but we also started to see a lot of that in our middle school scores, where we also have that consistent, rigorous curriculum. So what have we done so far? We've actually established a literacy team that's met multiple times. To the best of my knowledge, that's not been done in Ravenna. We have representatives from everywhere from preschool to high school. We have school psychologists, speech pathologists. We really, and people who really take literacy to heart. This is something that they're extremely invested in. As I mentioned earlier, Mrs. Coleman and myself, we reached out to the community centers. We need to continue to do that. We need to continue to spread the message and tell our story that early access to education is a good thing, and it's possible. The district purchased the new reading series and PK. Recently, we just purchased the preschool one. And what we're finding, the other part of that, is that our summer slide is not near what it used to be. We're averaging around a decrease of 10% with our kids coming back off summer versus somewhere between the 20 and 30% range. And what are we working on right now? Again, this plan is over 3 years. We're in the middle of year 2, so we revised it to meet the state guidelines. But in grades 9 through 12, or 8 through 12 rather, we are looking at bringing a screener on, a simple screener that takes about between 2 and 3 minutes for kiddos that our teachers can actually use to start identifying why students can't read. One of the things that I am very passionate about is if we have kids in that middle school and high school that aren't able to read, we need to find out why. We cannot say that we got to wait till, for example, the third graders get there. We have to get kids reading. That's something that is extremely important to me. Mrs. Haynes and I are working on, with staff, to develop the interventions based on student needs. And the literacy, adolescent literacy professional development is being introduced at the middle school and high school. Again, teaching older students to read or increase their vocabulary is much different than teaching the second grader how to read. And we need to actually be trained on how to do that, because that's not how our teachers were trained. And that's my reading improvement plan in a nutshell. Obviously, you have a summary of it, but you also have the full document in your information. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
Do we know how many preschoolers who live within the Ravenna City School District actually opt to attend preschool through Head Start?
I don't know, but
Because I just want to make sure that population, that there are other options. So we might have children who are participating in other preschool programs.
Yeah, we could actually survey that. One of the things I did in my previous district is we surveyed our current kindergarten to find out where they went to preschool.
Okay. And then the other thing I would just add is with the recruitment, just making sure that we're casting a broad net. The Skills and McAlworth communities are very small. I do not know the total as far as population of preschool-aged children that live there, but the community centers are both wonderful resources. But I would just caution us not to just get comfortable going to the same places. We need to make sure that we keep reaching out to different people, different places.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. As a matter of fact, I think in Mrs. Coleman's last meeting or 2 meetings ago, we did talk about that. Anywhere from QR codes that we can stick on pediatricians' doors or something like that. Yeah, we are definitely cognizant of that, because we want to fill those slots up. It's only going to help the kids, the parents, and ultimately the teachers as they go to teach them to gain those exposures.
And I'll email you. I'm on the Portage Learning Centers board. I'll get you
Yeah,
the contact
absolutely.
person to your data person, so you can get some numbers. That will
Thanks,
help you.
appreciate it. Anybody else?
Thank you. All right, Mr.
Report to the board, Maplewood report, Mrs. Seaman.
All right. We did both of our meetings, our organizational meeting and our regular meeting together. And we appointed a new president. It's Jay Kelsey of Ritztown. He has been president before, and he's been elected again. And of course, Mike Wisniewski was sworn in as a new member of the board, and I hope you got a nice tour of Maplewood after.
Yet, but it's in the future plans,
okay.
absolutely.
You'll be very impressed.
Yes.
the things that took place at the meeting were pretty much exactly what we're doing here, what we did in our organizational meeting, which is appointing the lawyers and what newspaper's going to report and what the superintendent is, what her or his duties are, and food prices and that kind of thing. That's we did all that, and that's what they did also. They have already set their senior awards ceremony, and it will be held at Kent State University Mack Center on Tuesday, May 28th, 2024 at 7 p.m. And usually all the board members go to that. One important date coming up is their spring break, which is going to be a week earlier than Ravenna's spring break. So if I know nobody here has any kids at Maplewood, but for the parents that do, they're going to have to figure out how they're going to do their spring break, because they will be off the week before we are off. And that's my Maplewood report.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation report, Mrs. Dennison.
The Parks and Recreation Board was recently invited by the Building and Engineering Department to review and score statements of qualifications from 4 landscape architectural firms for the conceptual design of Osborne Park, which is like a 6-acre piece of land that's beside and behind McDonald's on Main Street. So the land borders Highland Avenue and Pittsburgh Street, and also there's access from Sycamore Street. So this was just, it was a wonderful opportunity to kind of look at the future potential of new recreational facilities for the city of Ravenna. So I was very impressed by a lot of the information that was submitted, and hopefully we will, get a chance to reap some of the benefits of having someone look at it with fresh eyes and develop it for potential for all of the people in the city of Ravenna to enjoy. So that I was impressed by the process and just being a part of it, to kind of see that potential. And just as a reminder, Ravenna Parks and Recreation, they have programs for everyone, from preschool to senior citizens, and people need to really take advantage of what we do have to offer through Parks and Recreation here in the city of Ravenna. That's it.
Thank you. Next is report to the treasurer.
Yes, first we have a consent agenda for items 1 through 3. That includes the approval of the minutes from both the December 4th business meeting and the January 8th organizational meeting. Our list of gifts and donations, primarily donations to the Brad Bauer Scholarship this month, in addition to 2 donations for the RHS Drama Club. And then the third item is the financial reports for both the month of November and the month of December.
I got a motion, please. Hey, Rick, can you? Thank you. Okay, motion, please.
We have a motion
We have
from
a motion.
Mr. Tantamonia and a second from Mrs. Seaman.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Before I say yes, which I will, I just wanted to say how impressed I am with this list of people who care a lot about that wrestling program and about the scholarships. So, yes.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
The next item is a standalone item, and that is the resolution authorizing the execution of a master lease purchase agreement and related property schedule between Portage Community Bank and the board for the upcoming construction, improvement, furnishing, and equipping, and lease and eventual acquisition of improvements to our elementary schools.
I have a motion, please.
So move.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
And then finally, the last item is the fiscal 2025 tax budget.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Roll call?
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes. Next, we have reports and recommendations to the superintendent and other administrators.
Okay, first is the recommendation to either amend or keep the following board meeting schedule with the dates and times as here. We voted on it at the organizational meeting, but we wanted to bring it back up because we didn't have a full group. So we need a motion, and then we can discuss it if we need to.
So
Motion.
move.
Do I have a
Second.
Questions or concerns? Roll call?
Wait a minute.
Wait,
Nope.
Don't go quite that quick.
My bad.
I want to propose, and it would be an amendment, that we change the starting time to 6 p.m. for the actual board meeting, with this stipulation that the board members still convene at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and allow that hour before the meeting for committee meetings, work sessions, or whatever else is called for, to eliminate having to go out another afternoon or evening for committee meetings. That could all be accomplished in that 1 hour of having a 6 o'clock meeting.
I don't know. I kind of like 5:30. I like 6 o'clock hits that dinner time. At least when it's at, well, when it was at 5, you were home by maybe 6:30, and you'd still have time for dinner. But if you have it later, then you need to have dinner before. It's just hard, I think. 5:30 I thought was good, and we don't have that many work sessions.
We have that many committee sessions.
Well, yeah, but that's not that bad. I guess I prefer 5:30. I don't know, but I'm fine with whatever we do.
If there's no second, go ahead.
Okay. Are we doing roll call now?
Mrs. Seaman?
What are we voting on?
The one that's in the...
In front of us.
At the 5:30, correct?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
No.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison, how did you vote?
I said yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. The next is an amendment to the board subcommittees. The board, we went ahead and assigned them exactly as they were the last year, but we wanted to bring it back up to the group for those who were not at the meeting, to ensure that either the people who wanted to be on the committee were on their chosen committees, or if there was any changes that you wanted.
Have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or concerns, comments? Roll call?
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
The next resolution is also a standalone to approve the second reading of 2 board policies that Mr. Rybelin presented. He needs to quickly do the second reading, and then you can vote on them.
Thank you. We do have 2 policies that are in a second reading because they're new. The first one is policy 5337, which is care of students with seizure disorders. And beginning this school year, school districts are required to create a seizure action plan for all students who have been diagnosed with active seizure disorders. And the plan is developed with a whole group of team members, including the nurse, the building principals, and anyone else that, including the parents and students if possible. This is put into law this year through House Bill 33, and there's not much change to that other than we need to follow the law. The next one is Policy 6240, Board of Revision Complaints and Counter Complaints. This new policy is offered as a means to comply with statutory provisions of House Bill 126. Districts are limited in their ability to challenge tax valuation of properties in the district. Boards now have a limited role in real estate valuation appeals. The policy authorizes the treasurer to act within the limits of the law, and this proposed policy is consistent with the current state of law and should be considered. Any questions on those two? We did read them at the last meeting. They were also covered at the policy committee meeting that was held prior to the December meeting.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Roll call?
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
The next two agenda items involve the Ohio School Board Association. One is to approve our participation in the Legal Assistance Fund, and one is to become a member of the Ohio School Boards Association.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call?
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
The next is to approve the 2024-2025 school calendar. It was calendar A that people voted for. People will get it tomorrow after if you approve it tonight, it'll be sent out tomorrow and posted on the website.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call?
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
Next is a memorandum of understanding, or an MOU, with the Kent State University to continue with their College Credit Plus program.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call?
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
Next is to approve a public meeting notice. We are asking that you allow us to place notice in the Record Courier no later than the 25th to alert the public that Ms. Beth Coleman, who is currently employed as our preschool director and works with the Special Education Department, who will be retiring, but we would like her to be reemployed in the same position following her retirement. We have to hold a public meeting on this issue to reemploy her as a rehire, and it has to go to the Record Courier to post it as a meeting before we can do anything, so we need permission to send it to the paper.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments, concerns? Is this stating that we have to have the meeting before the 25th?
We have to put it in the paper
Yeah,
before
the meeting just has to be-
It'll be on the next agenda.
Perfect. Roll call?
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
Next is we're asking that you approve the reading improvement plan that Mr. Smith discussed earlier and provided you the summary as well as the entire document.
Motion, please.
Yes.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call?
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
Next is to approve the use of non-bachelor personnel as a substitute teacher. We can approve them on a yearly basis.
Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Does this mean they...
Wait, do we have a second?
Do we have a second?
Mm-hmm. I thought we did.
Second.
Okay, now we do. So, okay, does this mean what?
Does this mean that they They can just have a high school diploma?
But they have to be attending college for an
Oh.
education degree.
Oh, okay.
But we only approve them for 1 year,
Okay.
and then we can reassess after that.
No.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Next, we have a consent agenda, items 1 through 5, resignation of a social studies teacher for 1 period a day. He was helping us out. We've now replaced them with Mr. Riggenbaugh, who does our ISR as well. The resignation of a preschool teacher, and movement on the pay scale for teachers that completed coursework, employment of 2 after-school tutors, and the employment of substitute teachers.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
Next is the approval of the consent agenda, items 1 through 4, the employment of 2 athletic workers, the resignation of a cheer advisor, the resignation of a grade level chair, and the hiring of a grade level chair.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
Next is the consent agenda for items 1 through 7, classified personnel. Agenda items, the resignation of an educational aide, the employment of an educational aide, resignation and employment of a custodian, a bus driver, approve an unpaid leave of absence for a bus aide, and the employment of substitute employees.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
Next is the employment of a food handler. Mr. Tandemonia will ask you to abstain from this.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Did you abstain
Oh, no.
from that?
No, I don't think I need to abstain from that. It doesn't affect. You want me to? I don't care.
We've had you abstain on other food handler positions. So we've had you abstain on other food handler positions.
Okay, abstain.
Okay. And finally, to accept the resignation of the payroll clerk.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Do you have any comments, questions, or concerns? Roll call.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes.
We have no one signed up for recognition of the public, so we can go into the discussion with the board member, with Noah.
So today we have Noah Brode here from Brown Middle School. Noah, how are you doing today?
Good.
Good. So the board's going to ask you some questions. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Tandemonia. He's kind of the guru on this. Mr. T?
Well, I think we're all about the same. We're very pleased that you came tonight. I know it's taken time out of your evening, and we want to know a little bit more about you to start with, okay? And your grade and what courses you're taking, what you like, the additional things you might be doing in school. Tell us a little bit about yourself. We'll make sure we can hear you. You might want to pull that mic a little bit closer to you. You ready, Noah? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and have you been in the Ravenna system your whole school career?
Not my whole school career. I was in Ravenna, then I went to Akron. Now I'm back.
Is this your first year back?
No, it's my third.
Third? Okay. How's it going in school this year?
I think it's going better than before.
So you're getting some pretty decent grades?
Yeah, I would say.
Okay. Do you do, what's your favorite, let's talk about subjects. What's your favorite subject this year?
Probably social studies.
Yeah. Okay. Any others that you like?
Not really.
Okay, nothing special. Huh? Are you doing anything additionally, like any athletic things or clubs?
I do football, wrestling, and track.
Oh, quite a few things. All right. What do you do in track? What do you like to do?
Last year I did throwing, but this year I'm thinking about doing a running event.
Okay. Very good. You like football, you say?
Yeah.
What's your position you like?
I play center and linebacker.
Okay. Those are good ones. All right. What's school like for you at Brown? Is it, are things good? Do the kids treat each other okay? And you like being there?
Yeah, I like the school a lot. I think it's a good school.
Okay. Did you, I shouldn't say enjoy tonight, but did you learn anything tonight about school board? About what we do and why we're here? It's pretty hard to determine, huh? But our responsibilities are kind of overlooking everything, and all of us are elected. In other words, like there's an election coming up in just a couple months, and there's another election in the fall. When you're elected to a school board, you have to run for office just like all the elected offices, and the person with the most votes is called the winner. Sometimes I wonder whether that's true or not, but nevertheless, how you get to serve. And you serve for 4 years. Some of us serve for one term of 4 years, and some of us keep coming back for more. And we have myself and Mrs. Seaman, I think she's been here almost 20 years, or maybe over 20 years. That's a long time to serve on a board. And the reason we serve is because we all believe in education, and we want the best education for you. Okay? How about some questions from someone else? Anybody?
Did you ask him about what he would, has he ever thought about anything he might like to do when he graduates?
Did you hear that? No? Okay. Are you starting to think in terms of getting a job when you graduate, and it's only four or 5 more years, or going on to some other kind of training, either college or a technical school or mechanic school, or have you thought about going to Maplewood for your last couple of years?
I was thinking I wanted to go to college for like sports and stuff, but
You haven't given it much thought, have you? That's okay. That's okay. You will as you go along. You'll get more interested in some direction or another, and I'm sure you'll be fine.
yeah.
You said you enjoyed social studies. What do you like about it?
I like the teachers, the kids in my class, and I just like to learn all the new stuff about the history.
Okay.
Okay.
My last question you would be, do you have a safe way to go home? Someone here to take you home?
Yeah,
Your folks?
yeah.
Okay, you want to introduce them?
That's my dad and my mom.
Okay. That's pretty good. We kind of figured that. That's, do you have some brothers or sisters?
I have 2 sisters and a brother.
Are they older?
I have 2 older and 1 younger.
Which are they? I mean, like, who's the 2 older ones?
The one's name is Maddie, and then the other one is Elijah.
Elijah? Okay. And are they all in Ravenna schools?
My sister, she's here. My brother's at Maplewood, and my other sisters. Yeah.
Okay. Do you or any of your friends go to anything like a football game or a basketball game here?
Sometimes, yeah.
Which? What do you like to go to?
The football games.
Football? Okay. Just wondering. Thanks. Pam, anybody?
I don't have any questions, just to
Anybody?
say I know you're glad the meeting is over, but also, thank you so much for coming and putting yourself out there. I know it's not easy being on the hot seat, answering all the questions, and you're here by yourself tonight. Typically we have 2, but you toughed it out, and we appreciate you being here.
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Next event is informational items. Staff Professional Development Day, no school for students on February 16th. President's Day, no school, February 19th. Next Board of Education meeting is Ravenna High School, February 26th. We do not have a need for executive session. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call.
Mr. Tantamonia?
Yes.
Mrs. Seaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Dennison? Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes.
Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes. Thank you, everybody.